enough of that little stream countdown. Hello and welcome to a casual Sunday cartooning stream. Right now I'm just using the thumbnail for my Tuesday streams for work because that's what I've got that has sort of a sampling of my characters in it, not just one. And that sucks. Sorry, I'm coughing on camera. Let's flip over to, well, there's my document camera and what we're gonna work on. Hello. Usually when I'm streaming on this channel, I don't show my face. But hi, I'm Pure Draculea. This is my first time streaming live in public with OBS, so bear with me. I do have a little video ready for technical difficulties when they crop up, but anyways, what we're gonna do is just some playing around, cartooning and whatnot. And we might get around to working on some Noah's Archipelago stuff in a little bit, but I thought maybe what we would do would be to start with a little bit of random cartooning. So back to the document camera. That's for Noah later. Last night I was watching what's his channel called Inkspired, I think, and he was doing some architectural type drawings from New York. But that kind of, I was thinking, you know what? It inspired me, even though this is a completely different style of work, to break out the acrylic inks and some watercolor paper and start was doing some cartooning in this. I had done some stuff similar ages ago, a couple years ago, only instead of like deliberately using like acrylic inks for the background, I had done some random what's it called, jelly plate printing, and then cartooned into that. But why don't we just kind of get warmed up a little bit like that. This one just kind of looks like a volcano to me, although it would be barfing out the wrong kind of stuff. Let me grab a different pen. And we're just gonna muck around a little bit, get warmed up, and then, like I said, maybe in a bit we'll start on some material from my webcomic Noah's Archipelago, since I should have one to post tomorrow morning, and usually I end up drawing those pretty late on Sunday evening. But let's kind of get to it. This stuff I just splattered and then kind of tilted it and blew it, but it's kind of looking a little volcano-y to me, which would imply that perhaps, well, if we look at that one kind of looks like it's exploding. But it could also kind of look like snow-capped peaks, at least the white bits. So why don't we kind of assume we've got some of our characters getting dragged out for a hike. And now scale-wise, this is not going to work so well, but maybe we'll come down here and we'll start drawing Noah. I don't know why, but it just seems like that's a no. Well, actually, those eyeballs already look like Ursula, but size-wise, it'll make them look a little bit more Noah-esque. And so this is my first time doing a Sunday stream. I've been thinking about it for a couple weeks. In fact, I think I scheduled one last week and then just ran out of time. So let's see, but my other streams, it's all kind of, I've got a project and I'm working on it and whatnot, whereas this is going to be, well, I guess if I do tomorrow's Noah's Archipelago, then that's kind of the same thing, but just think of kind of trying to do things that are a little more random. And yeah. And since we're on Noah, why don't we flip to there? Now, granted, I'm probably going to be head down, which doesn't work as well for a dual camera, but who knows, right? Anyways, let's give Noah a big, heavy backpack. Noah must maintain his open shirt policy at all times. Unless, well, Ruth makes him button his shirt when they go to church, but that's kind of about the only time that he'll pay attention to those sorts of dictates from the missus. Got himself a hiking pole. And already I'm running off the page, but that's kind of fine. Drag this over here and bring the document camera down a wee bit. Up. If I can get it to not fall over, that would be good. Falling over is not ideal. Page is going to flip, so we'll do that. Some light might be better. Oh yeah. One thing is I gotta watch with this light. If I have it too far down, then I smack it with my pen and we constantly have noise, and that's annoying. But I think that's close enough. I feel like making this into a bit of it seems to want to kind of become a volcano. So why don't we go with that? And that would definitely be a kind of kids don't try this at home thing. Although I guess it depends how far enough away they would be, but you know, pyroclastic flow, you definitely don't want to be, you know, Maybe if you have this kind of a volcano and you're far enough away, because that would be more like a shield volcano, nice and flat like what they've got in Hawaii. You still don't want to be that close, but if you're at that distance where it looks that big on the horizon, you're probably okay, depending. But you definitely don't want to be near one of those kind of volcanoes because that's the Mount St. Helens type that just goes boom and barfs out poison gas that definitely goes faster than you can run away from it. It would help if... Okay, that's a good data point. I need to have this a little bit higher in order to have everything in. Well, let's play with one of the other ones. I prepped a bunch of, I think, 6 or 7 of these. So this one kind of, because of the orange, speaks to me in terms of Ricky B. the Rock and Roll Rat, and I do have an option for that. So, what's Ricky going to be up to? Maybe Ricky's had some edibles and he is one with the cheese. Seems like the sort of thing Ricky might be up to on a Sunday. Although Mama Rat often does drag his sorry ass to church, but, you know. Another thing we could do in a little bit actually would be to pop over and start doing some blue line stuff for this week's live streams. So I usually do a non-photo blue pencil crayon underdrawing. And there's definitely a couple pages I need to blue line for Ricky B on the Friday stream. Actually, a couple ads that go with the B story of that, so we might draw those. I'm not sure exactly how well the camera picks them up, but we can try it. Kind of didn't have... Well, I think the idea with the Sunday streams would be kind of stream, shoot the shit. If anybody's watching, then we can chat, etc. But I kind of don't want it to become too much of actual work live streams. That kind of defeats the purpose. I already do those 5 nights a week. But some prep is good. Ricky's tail doesn't normally curve that much, but it's a special occasion, I guess. And now I've got a bunch of alcohol markers here. I'm not sure if the acrylic ink might be kind of a resist or not, but we can find out. I think the color I usually use for, well, not that I've done a ton of test this in the corner first. Yeah, that's kind of a decent enough color for Ricky. Whether any of it will show, but I guess in the white areas. Interesting. Pigment markers in theory aren't supposed to bleed, but that one sure did, so yeah. Perhaps we will use the alcohol markers sort of around that. Also, they haven't had a chance to dry. Got a bit of cobalty kind of tone here and there, so can also starting to have an idea about him looking around in wonderment because he is one with the cheese. He's inside the holes of the cheese. In which case, I guess the holes have gone a little bit moldy, but test this in the corner. These markers don't really want to close. And let's give him. When rats and mice are happy, their ears go kind of pink. So Ricky loves cheese, so we'll assume that this would make him happy. His tail probably shouldn't be. Usually I do his tail more of a peachy color, but if you hear random noises in the background, I don't know if things are picking up on my mic or not, but my neighbor is into woodworking and whatnot, so sometimes we hear saws and stuff. And it kind of feels like a good place to stop with that particular drawing for now. Could see I might come back with acrylic paint markers, but they're in the other room, so I would have to pause the stream to go and fetch that. And yeah, maybe next week we'll bring some of those around. So the 2 pages I have prepped in this book we have now filled. But I have a couple others because I was thinking like, okay, some of this stuff is wet, so prepped like a page in each book and on a rotation and went kind of around. So you can see these are just the Canson XL watercolor, nothing fancy, nothing special really. What are we gonna do? 3 pages on this one. Pop back to Noah. That pen is almost out of ink. Trying to be better at separating out when pens are going dry, instead of just putting them back and then wondering why I've got a bunch like that. So we're drawing here Noah's youngest daughter, Valerie, who is still a baby. just have to, with some hand positions, I have to kind of like think of, okay, how would that be? So yeah, be like, of course, Noah's gonna look a little weird because I drew his hand and arm before really saying the size of his head, but usually when I draw Valerie's thought bubbles, there's no words because, right, she's, she's a baby. She doesn't know no words yet. But yeah. Thrown with a little bumper pad type of thing. Yeah, well, I'd have to work on that concept a little more. So I was kind of thinking almost would be where she's calling the guards because she doesn't like what Noah is offering her. What the royal cook is offering is not what the queen wishes to consume. Yeah. You know what? Let's set these aside and let's start working on Noah's Archipelago. Since I do have an idea for what to do for this week's comic. Well, not this week's, Monday's. We've got a little bit of a storyline arc where Ursula's class is at having a field trip to the art gallery, and Ursula is not impressed. So I'll show the previous couple cartoons. Let's see if we can get that. Yep. So that was last Monday's, where they're at the art gallery. The gallery staff member, or I guess docent is kind of what they call their tour guides, is saying, "All right, kids, any questions?" This is Ursula's teacher, Miss Fardamar. Ursula says, "How come you don't have any good art?" Miss Fardamar, not too thrilled with that. And then the one I did on Thursday, the docent is like, "You don't think this is good art?" And Ursula, not impressed because splatter painting is for kindergartners. So, because these are alcohol markers, you can see they bleed through, right? So that's why I've got these that I kind of shove in. Because I've got some alcohol marker stuff where I had the other, not just the back, but like the facing page didn't have any. And then it started to stain the other paper. So try and keep pages in between. But so I'm thinking we're going to have a showdown with Miss Vardamar and Ursula. So my first step when I'm doing my comics, I generally try and have them kind of square-ish because obviously Instagram you don't have. When I started doing the comic, Instagram you had to have it square. Now of course you don't, but you can get some weird cropping. And if I'm posting it on say YouTube as a post, then that definitely has to still be a square. So well, I'm just eyeballing. This isn't really much of anything yet. Not sure how much of. So if I hold that up, I'll try and get to focus. Maybe it'll focus, maybe not. But that's non-photo blue. It's 919 Prismacolor. So the idea is, I mean, it doesn't really work here because I'm working in full color, right? So if I'm scanning like that, the blue that's under there, under that lettering, is going to show because I'm scanning in color. But that's kind of how I'm used to doing my underdrawing. And like some places, like obviously in the faces, I try and draw it very close to where I'm actually going to ink with the marker. But anyways, let's it's something that when I'm doing the NOAA 2027 calendar on Tuesday nights, I kind of have to be mindful of. But I do kind of try and keep their heads so we don't have like, you know, if I wasn't careful and I drew the head too small, I had something like that. That will definitely show when I ink their skin, when I ink her skin, right? So, trying to have my proportions and work super light now. When I was doing this digitally, of course, that was just a separate layer on in Procreate, so then I could just make it go away, you know? Anyways, so we do have some that's bled through, which is fine. So we're going to have an angry Ursula down here. And yeah. Let's see if I can bring that down closer so that it shows up at this stage, because obviously once I start inking, then you'll be able to see the black line, but at this point it's kind of a little bit, yeah, it's pretty faint, but you can sort of make it out. I have to double check. Realize I have several characters who have variations on this hairstyle. Because Ursula's grandma Agnes has a version of this and whatnot. Now, with Miss Vardamar, when I was doing it digitally, I would use the dark brown, but have it as not totally opaque, like the marker, kind of use the marker setting, and then it would tend to leave a lot of white showing through. So it'd be kind of as if Miss Vardamar is going gray. Of course, right now when I'm doing this with real markers, they aren't actually gray. So I guess it's going to look like Miss Vardamar has gone and gotten her hair touched up. Before I go too much further, I do need to put in the text. you love art. Do I have an eraser here? No, I don't. Okay, well, we're just gonna um, you. Let me just start with text because I'm kind of thinking on the fly about my dialogue here, which I'm not as sure about. So, in fact, I think what I've drawn here, I think I'm going to save this for Thursday, this particular, like the map outlines. Because I just thought of a better joke. So it's going to be Ursula, you wanted to come to the art gallery. And then Ursula says, well, it was either that or doing math, which is kind of a running gag as well. I think what I'm going to be starting to do over the summer is kind of changing Noah's Archipelago. It was like a 4-panel or a single panel comic for the longest time. And then I just started to find more and more that I was having a harder and harder time getting the comics actually done. And I think, I don't know, a little bit of burnout because I was definitely dealing with that last year for completely different reasons and whatnot. But I do think some of the stories I want to tell with Noah's Archipelago, they're kind of too big for the format I was using, which was like a 4-panel. And now I'm basically drawing single panels every time. But I had tried earlier this year to have a longer story arc that covered, actually like 2 months. The problem is then because I post on Facebook and whatnot, right? So it's the algorithm and blah, 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 right? But most of the followers I have on there weren't even being shown the comic, right? Because you can see the insights and you see how many people Facebook actually shows your stuff to. And so then it's kind of hard if, like, for example, I have 1,700 followers for Noah's Archipelago. Any given comic I post, though, Facebook only shows it to maybe 20. So most of my followers then aren't seeing it. If they happen to see something and it's a longer thing, story arc, they may not have seen the previous 5 installments, right? So then it gets really confusing. Like, what the hell is going on here? So that's why I'm kind of, for these, like, this is kind of a series because they're at the art gallery, but you don't have to know what happened on Monday to get this one, you know what I mean? I'm trying to make them all standalone gags because of how the social media are, like, I don't know if somebody who's seen this comic when I post it tomorrow, if they've seen the last few, right? They may not have seen one in 2 months. So I'm trying to minimize confusion, but I do want to do bigger stories. I think what I'm going to end up doing is probably it's going to become that I do start doing Noah's Archipelago graphic novels, because then on Thursday nights I can ink that, kind of like I'm doing with Ricky B. With Ricky B Goes to Sea on Fridays, and then at the end I'll have a book done. So obviously, whoever gets the book, they can read it right through, as opposed to on social media, somebody may be wanting to see something, but they may only see page 37, so to speak, right? And then it doesn't make any sense because they haven't been shown the other stuff. Anyways, so that's kind of transition sort of thing that I'm working on now. Anyways, um, so I guess that's the point. If you're seeing, for example, I'm not posting them on this channel anymore, the weekly wrap-ups that I used to call Scuttlebutt, and now I'm just calling it weekly work wrap-ups. But the algorithm seems to get confused if you have too much different stuff. So it's like, okay, I'm on this channel that you're watching right now, I'm doing drawings, like, so I'm basically live streaming, I'm doing drawings, and then I have another channel where I've started posting my weekly work wrap ups, and then I link that channel back to here. Anyways, you know, it's it's confusing, but I don't know what the point of me mentioning that was. I guess that I'm kind of still doing one-off gags here, but I'm going to be starting to work on bigger projects because I have ideas about bigger projects like Ursula wanting to run away, not because she hates her parents, but she hates maths, and she gets this impression that her dad's mom lives in Florida and talks about how wonderful things are in Florida. And it's perfect. So she gets this idea if she moves to Florida, everything will be great. And they live in Victoria, BC, and that's kind of the bottom of Vancouver Island is surrounded by the Strait of Juan de Fuca and Harrow Strait. And on the other side is the Washington Peninsula. So they can see America, and she thinks that she just has to get across the water, and then she'll be in Florida by supper time. Anyways, I have these sorts of long stories, which would be kind of weird to try and do it in the webcomic format, at least on the platforms that I post on. So those will become probably graphic novels or whatever. So anyways, but for now, we are working on a one-off gag. You wanted to come to the art gallery. Screwed up my letters. That's okay. We will Photoshop or Procreate. There. Oh. Problem with zooming in is then we missed that. So you're still getting a math quiz today. This thing only autofocuses when I press the button. It does not autofocus automatically. So let me just shove that underneath there. So we've got our basic text, and I will use that same pen to draw. So Now, Ursula is very artistic, which is kind of the point that Miss Fartimar is making, but Ursula also has her own very distinct opinions about what is good art. For example, she does her own little cartoon. It's The Adventures of Mr. Boogerman, who is well, him and his sidekick Little Nugget. They're kind of like the nasal version of Batman and Robin. They fight nose crime. um, so yeah, if they had more, or I guess if they had at the gallery, they had this kind of thing, but the splatters were green. Perhaps you would appreciate it a little more. But anyways, we're gonna that and that, and we'll assume in the background we've got some sort of uh, something that looks like barf. And I am going to write. Here is my. Used to be when I did marker comics, I didn't actually write in what it is, and then but I always had that on the digitals, or sort of hidden in the middle, or the digitals actually, if it was a 4 panel, I had it sort of in the crisscross. But I'm having to remember to write this stuff into the actual comic. So April, tomorrow is going to be the 27th. I guess another reason for wanting to move into longer work too is kind of thinking in terms of, the digital stuff I'm going to do. Not They're not called anthologies, but comic collections, right? But the marker ones, I don't know. I don't know. I guess they should translate just as well into collections, but I kind of am thinking if I'm drawing it by hand, there's something in my brain that's like, forget about these. Um, Almost like these ones become throwaways until I'm just doing graphic novels with it. Who knows? I may come back around. So we've got a rough outline here. And now we're going to ink the comic, so to speak. So, right. Kind of not the most appropriate season for turtleneck sweaters, but I guess air conditioning bothers Miss Vardmar, so usually this time of year I would draw her wearing like a t-shirt, or maybe not a t-shirt, but like a kind of like a boat neck long sleeve t-shirt or something like that. So she's got a, what do the actors call it? A bit of business with the hands. These are just the Staedtler pigment liners. So basically it's the exact same as what I do on my Tuesday night stream for the calendars, other than in that case I'm working on separate sheets of Bristol board. I do find these sketchbooks, and this is just like there you can see Montmartre. I get these, I have a whole horde of them, but get them at Winter's Home Sense here, which I think in the States they call it TJ Maxx and Home Goods. Same kind of idea, but their art supply section, sometimes you get these books, and they're pretty good. I do find it kind of seems like markers get sucked dry out of these a lot faster than, say, on Bristol board. Maybe I'm imagining that, I don't know. But I do like to kind of add a little bit of thicker lines here and there. And I did do that with the other ones. Whoops. And we hide that by doing that. Ursula and her characteristic unmanageable hair. Also kind of hides when you make mistakes. So now we start the coloring. And the fact that I've been streaming for an hour now, and we've not only done a couple other drawings, but now we're almost, we're like halfway done, I would say. This is why I do this. Now, I do need to test. I probably should have written down, and yep, that's the right one. Written down the specific colors. I know for like Ursula's skin and Noah's skin, there's certain specific ones that I use, but otherwise I haven't really kept track as much. I probably should. I have to remember with these alcohol markers is that they do tend to mushroom. I don't know, what are they called? In watercolor, I think you'd call that a bloom, where you do the line like that and it slowly goes. Actually, I just drew something that didn't show up. But especially like around the edge of Miss Fardamar's face, I'm going to have to be cautious because that's a thin enough line that I don't want to come right up to it, because then I may have the blue kind of expand into her face. So kind of go like that. I don't know. That probably doesn't necessarily show on camera, but definitely I stayed further away and then it expanded into her face right up to the line. So which takes some getting used to. I'm definitely new to the whole alcohol markers thing. And I guess if I use like a marker paper, I think that probably doesn't happen as much, but I guess it's more called bleed than bloom. But I saw bleed as being what goes through the back of the sheet in this case, but I'm probably not correct. But see, by staying that little bit away from the line, it's gone up and oozed out pretty much right up to the line. Now, these fatter lines, it's less of a concern, but definitely something I've had to learn to be mindful of. I don't worry about too much about stuff like that where I go over the line. I mean, it's kind of the nature of working with markers, I think. Right. Here I'm just channeling, bad versions of process-based art. You've got the process based where it's like, okay, I'm trying to capture movement or whatever, and then you've got the process based where it's just like, whatever, the difference between what one might see um, in a New York gallery with splatter paintings there or whatnot versus what one sees with pouring art or whatever. It's like, well, you know, when it's for relaxation or decoration, that's fine, but I sometimes then see people uh, complaining that they do that sort of stuff and then going like, how come my work's not selling for $30,000 in a Chelsea art gallery? It's like, well, you're not in the same market. But anyways, I don't think that's the right shade of eyeshadow for Miss Vardamar. I think she wears more of a forest green. Miss Vardamar is very much into earth tones, although one does occasionally see her in brighter colors, but only very occasionally. Usually she's very earthy, kind of a khaki green, olive green skirt, green eyeshadow. Yeah. It's kind of like Ursula's mom, Ruth, also a teacher, same school, but Ruth teaches second grade. And Ruth's signature color is kind of a slate blue. Actually, I think it was last August, I had one comic where, or a mini arc where Ruth found out that Noah thinks her clothes all look like the same color. And she holds up these three dresses, and they're all kind of grayish color. One is a purplish gray, one's a greenish gray, and one's a slate blue gray. And she's like, you can't possibly think these are the same. And he kind of looks at her. He's like, okay, dear, like I believe you. Don't fight with me. Meanwhile, Noah wears colors like that. But, opposites attract, I guess. Is that really the... Yeah, it kind of does look... That may not actually be the correct gray floor color, but it's close enough. And again, I have to be mindful of how much this is going to bloom and try to keep it away so that it doesn't go into Ursula's skin. I don't mind if there's the faintest hint of a white halo, actually. Well, maybe I do mind a touch. I think I used a different marker, one of the other ones, for Miss Fardamar's sweater, but I think this one is a close enough match. Let me just see. Oh no, that is way off. Okay, well, we go looking through here then. It's probably that one, I think. Close enough. Yeah, that's it. These markers are drying out, but for textiles, that's actually kind of great. Actually, see if I've got a dark brown for Miss Fardamar's hair that might be kind of half dried out like that. Maybe. No. No. Not really. So I think it's this one, and then I just have to like almost. And that's just leaving just enough kind of white space in there that kind of looks a little like she's got a little gray coming in, which kind of was how I had her hair when I was doing it digitally. Now, Ursula's hair is a very particular marker tone. Gave Ursula a slightly different shade of dark green t-shirt. She often wears one that's either kind of this forest green or like a bright orange. She wears other colors occasionally, but she's very particular about what she likes, I guess would be the way to put it. So now on to flesh color. This is ever so slightly darker than the color I was using for Miss Fartimar digitally. Probably that one. That one's somewhere in between these two was about what I was using digitally. But in terms of my markers, I think this is the better option. More accurate one. Again, I know that this marker is going to blob out, so I'll be kind of careful and not get too close to, say, her eyes or her teeth, because I don't want those to get kind of covered with the skin color. All right, there we go. There's Miss Fartimar. And we'll give her a little doop. And then Ursula. It's the same coloring as her mother and her maternal grandmother. Although she has the blue eyes that Noah has, her father. But at this scale, we rarely see anyone's specific eye color, so. Here, and now I might add in a little bit of pencil crayon detail. Yeah, actually probably not. I think we're good. Obviously, I'll have to fix up that, but yeah, let's kind of bring it down and give a little more detailed look. So, Miss Fartimar, the bad art, Ursula being a brat, and Miss Fartimar's retort at the bottom. So that's that. Now, what are we going to draw? Been going an hour and 20 minutes, but we can go. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to do the blue lines for Ricky B. the Rock and Roll Rat. And actually, I'm not going to close that book right now because the marker stuff is still kind of wet. Not like wet to the touch, but you know. I'm just going to carefully place that on the floor behind me. And yeah, so let's see about another one of these. This one I kind of love Ricky being confused. I don't know why. It's just always amusing. We have that one. Is there another one of these pieces that makes me feel inspired? We did, of course, have the baby. Not sure what I want to do with this one, but because these colors are so strong, I probably need to use acrylic markers on it. So maybe we'll deal with that next Sunday. Yeah, I'm not sure about that one either. Oh, I'm like knocking things all over the place here. Anyways, there's another one I had that could work for Ricky too, but you know what? I think we'll save those ones for another day, and we will call it here. So, first of all, I guess I should throw in. I do have one of these handy dandy things. We have Ricky on the left there. Miles is Ricky's girlfriend's half-mouse cousin. That's why he's so much shorter. Although, in terms of mice, Miles is like a head taller than the other mice people. You know, he's half and half. Half rat, half mouse. Which, of course, does not happen in the real world, but in the cartoon world, why not? Especially when alcohol is involved. His parents were a one-night stand on St. Patrick's Day, and they don't get along. And he was raised by his mouse dad. Anyways, there's a whole thing. Anyways, like it says, subscribe if y'all like what you've seen. We have more streams coming in this upcoming week. Generally speaking, on Monday, we do Miles stuff. I will be inking a spread from Miles Morrow's Pursuit of Happiness. I have not drawn it yet. I'm going to do that after dinner tonight. I mean, I'll do the blue underdrawing like you saw me do for Noah. And then Tuesday's kind of my general work stream. So this is the thumbnail I have for it. What I'm working on right now on Tuesdays is not a Ricky B. Rat calendar. That's something I need to start working on. But the Noah's Archipelago calendar that I will be trying to have ready and put out for 2027. I've wanted to do a calendar for that comic for I started the comic in 2022, so I guess I thought, I don't think I thought I was going to have one for 2023, but, by 2024, it's like, oh, I got to do a calendar. And now, now I'm finally working on one for next year. So that's going to be Tuesday night. Wednesday night, I don't have a specific stream still, but this is an old drawing of Zamo the Destroyer. Zamo is an obnoxious iguana, very opinionated. This was actually my original web comic going back 20 years ago. I used to post on MySpace. And I'm getting ready to do some Zamo books. So we're working on Zamo stuff on Wednesdays. And on Thursdays, we're working on Noah stuff. That the current project there is Noah's Archipelago coloring book. And eventually we'll be doing a Noah graphic novel. I just have to actually write one. And then on Friday, here's Ricky again. Ricky B goes to sea. So we will be working on that. And we'll just go there. So yeah. Anyways, that's what we have coming up. On my other channel, Pure Draculea Art Vlogs, which should show up if you go to the channel page, homepage for this one, I think if you scroll down, I think I have a collaborations. It's my own channel, but I collaborate between the two. So I did put late last night the weekly work wrap up over on that other channel, and yeah, other stuff that's coming up this week. Well, off screen, I've got a painting that will be in the Cowichan Valley Fine Arts show. And I actually did film a video just kind of scanning over it and talking about it. I have to edit that and put it up, I guess, for next weekend. But yeah, all that stuff's coming up. Anyways, Hope you've enjoyed this week's stream. I do want to show one thing. I was so certain. I have to mention it first because I don't think I have my microphone going over top of it. But I have a little scene video that I made for technical difficulties because, especially when I was like testing and recording on OBS to try and get the hang of it, I had so many things going wrong. I made this little video. Anyways, it's a minor miracle that we didn't have to resort to that at any point during this stream today. But yeah, so like I said, thank you for watching, and I'm gonna try and do one of these streams every Sunday, somewhere around noon. I think next week's is scheduled for 11:55, but like today's, I didn't start till like 12:15 because I couldn't get the stream key to work. Anyways, so somewhere in the ballpark of noonish Pacific, somewhere between 12 and 12:30 Pacific on Sundays, I'm going to try and be starting to do some of these little streams, maybe working on the upcoming Noah's Archipelago. Maybe I'll start working on the Ricky B. Rat calendar, and maybe just doing some doodles like this. Probably doing at least one doodle just as a warm-up every time, right? And yeah. So thank you for watching. Thank you for your patience. And we will see you again real soon. Well, my next stream is tomorrow night, so a little more than 24 hours. But in terms of these kind of streams, we'll see you next Sunday. Anyways, cheers. This looks so weird. I should probably crop this more, but then my chin would be here, and when I bend down, anyways, we got to figure out some better ergonomics. But for now, it is what it is. So yeah, document camera. That's why Ricky looks confused. He feels dizzy from the camera. Anyways, enough of me blathering. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now. Bye, Ricky. Bye, bye, bye.